This is Darth Matthew, host of the Star Wars Generations and Superhero Ethics podcast, and I find your lack of membership disturbing. You can free yourself from the ads of those rebel scum by going to theethicalpanda.com and clicking join for $5 a month, $55 a year. No more ads, only the episodes, just as the Emperor intended.
Welcome back to the Star Wars Generations podcast. Today we are talking about Maul episodes 7 and 8. We've got Skeletor as an Inquisitor. We've got tough decisions being made by Two Boots, Lawson, his child, and all the others. We've got Erin McGowan. Erin, what do we think about these episodes?
Oh my God, these were peak. Like, so much of it, I just was thinking like, wow, we have reached absolute media.
Mm-hmm.
Just like it's weird to say camera work because it's a animated series.
Yeah.
But just like the angles and the way that they film their picture is so beautiful. And the fight scenes, the fight scenes in these episodes were incredible.
Yeah, I feel like as animation gets better and better and it's being taken more and more seriously, and a whole bunch of huge anime fans and animation fans are yelling at me, and I get it. That's kind of the point. Like, it's becoming, there are people who've understood that it should be taken seriously for generations. And I'm just saying that as it's entering more of the wider scope of conversation, we need to start coming up with a language, or at least adopting the language already being used for how to talk about this. Because, you know, it's not camera angle, but there's a conscious choice of at what angle do you draw, do you create the animation, and how does that affect how you see it, and the directorial choices and stuff like that. And all of that is going into, creating the story. And it's just incredible how it's happening.
It is. It's so beautiful. I mean, I knew Dave Filoni wouldn't let us down, but it's just every episode is better and better.
Yeah. Yeah. First of all, I just have to say, I think now we're closing in on, we only have 2 episodes left. Are we going to get a Filoni shot? Are we going to get a Filoni show that does not have an Order 66 flashback?
I think so. I don't think it matters at this point.
No, I think Daki mentioned it and got the emotional beat from that. And I think it's actually okay that we don't have it. Instead, I think one of the questions had been that we're actually discussing somewhat with myself and Pete and AK last week was, is Darth Sidious going to show up? And there's a sense of, like, on the one hand, we had to name that Darth Sidious is such a part of who Maul is, and his quest for revenge and but also acceptance. Also, that if Darth Sidious shows up like in person, it kind of sucks all the air out of the room. I hadn't even thought about, but that the way to square that circle is with flashbacks.
Yeah.
What'd you think of that whole like journey through Maul's psyche here?
It was beautiful. It was everything I was hoping for from this show. Like, I just wanted a little bit of knowledge on Maul's background, because between the extended universe and, canon, there are so many different ideas or kind of versions of the story about how Maul came up. Who is his family? Is Talzin his mother? Is she his adoptive mother? Is it just a title?
Right.
So I really liked that we got to see some more background, especially seeing that, like, he knew Savage personally before he went with Sidious. Whether or not they were true brothers, because, the Night Sisters and Night Brothers just call each other by sister and brother. They knew each other. And that's something I think that wasn't made clear when Savage was first introduced. And I don't think it was meant to be made clear. I think it was meant to be a little ambiguous. But I did love seeing that kind of flashback, and it brings just a lot more depth to Maul's hurt surrounding that.
Yeah.
Because watching through the Clone Wars, it's like, yes, Maul and Savage were partners. They were, brothers, but only for an episode or two. Like, Maul really took the lead and kind of made Savage the apprentice unwillingly, in the Clone Wars show. And it didn't seem like he had that much respect for Savage. So I like being able to see that, like, he did really care for Savage, and there was something, I think it was Devin was talking to him about, oh, your master betrayed you. And he said, yeah, but that's not the worst thing he did to me.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of implying, Savage's death, and furthermore, the Night Sisters as a whole.
Yeah. Like when you're saying about, is he treating Savage with respect or not? In the same kind of way of like people who grow up in, houses where there's a lot of domestic abuse and things like that, like you internalize that.
Okay, y'all. Matthew's internet crapped out. It's just me now. So I'm here to riff about the episodes. I hope you didn't want to hear Matthew's wisdom because it's just me now. So yeah, these episodes, really great. I mentioned briefly at the top some of the fight scenes. We saw most of those in the first episode, or episode 7. And something I love to see at the very start of the episode, when Maul and Devin and Riley went back to meet with Maul's crew, and Riley's all, yo, you trust this guy? And Devin's like, no, but do we have a choice? We're being hunted. And I don't think we could leave. He's probably going to kill us. And Riley's like, dude, I'm just a kid. I'm supposed to be playing lacrosse. Like, whatever space lacrosse it is he plays. Anyways, so they return back to Maul's area, and Spybot, who I mentioned in one of the first episodes about this series, how I was really excited for that character, and he seemed very endearing. And when they came back, Spybot was like a little puppy. He goes like, he's back. Maul was worried. And it's just so sweet. Like, I feel like with villains or, anti-heroes, and especially with the character of Maul, he is, so quote unquote evil or dark. We don't often see affection directed towards him at all. And I just thought it was so sweet that this little droid who's a menace and can kill people so easily is just like his little dog. Like, it just like nuzzles up to him and is like, Master, you're back. It's so sweet. And after he gets so excited about Maul, he goes, was worried. And Devin walks by and Spybot goes, Jedi. So he does not fuck with her, which I just thought was very cute. Wow, how many times can I say So yeah, we saw some cool battles there. The Empire found Maul and kind of his stronghold, and they were after them. Some of the Mandalorian commandos were pretty unhappy with how things were going. They were there for the money. They were there because they were being paid. And because of this kind of emergency evacuation, they didn't have time to take the credits. And so some of the mercenaries, were very grouchy and grumbly about it. And Rook Cast, I believe is her name, the female Mandalorian, was like, y'all just shut the fuck up and get in line. Like, come on. It's Maul. Y'all trying to die here? And they clearly didn't have respect for him. So halfway into this battle, they quote unquote make their move. And the Mandalorian commandos that are not happy with what's going on run to the ship. They steal the getaway ship and start to fly away. And Rook, is like, cusses them out. She's so pissed. Maul at this point, I think, is fully engaged in battle against the Inquisitors. So I don't even know. I don't remember if he clocked that happening or not. But the Mandalorian commandos go to fly away and then just immediately get wrecked by some incoming gunships, just blown to bits. And it's like, well, got what you deserved, I guess. Not that I wanted to see Mandalorians die, because there are less and less of those every day, especially the warrior type, but they kind of deserved it. And then also we just got to see the different sides of Maul's, how do I say, organization a little bit better. There's the Mandalorian commandos, who a lot of them were just there for the money. Some of the commandos stayed and were loyal to Rook Cast and Maul. Not everyone was in on this plan. I think there was maybe 3 of them that stayed. And then we also see, Maul has had these Night Brothers with him this whole time. I think initially there were maybe 3 or 4. But, as battle goes on. There are less and less throughout the season until we have just these two left, and there's a bigger built guy, the one who always has the machine gun and a mask covering half of his face, and then he has yellow Zabrak markings, I believe. And then there is another brother who is a little more slight, similar to Maul. It's pretty similar to like Maul and Savage as far as like big built yellow markings, slimmer built red markings. And Maul is kind of honestly getting his shit wrecked by the Inquisitors for a little bit there. And he's having some trouble with his electronic legs. I can't remember if the initial injury to his leg was from jumping really far or if an Inquisitor caused the damage. But his knee gave out. And so he's howling about that. Ugh. Lots of Maul growls and howls in these episodes, I will say. Some growling screams. Great work by Sam Witwer. Anyways, so we see those Night Brothers, and the bigger brother sees that Maul is in peril, kind of outnumbered against these Inquisitors. His legs aren't really working. They're failing him. It's looking real bad for him. And the brother goes down, says, "Brother, cover me." Goes to help Maul. And this is where I'm like, dude, I get it, but why would you go down there to attack Inquisitors and then not use your gun and just like hit them? Of course, you're being stabbed immediately. Like, you have to stay further away and shoot at them. But, it's whatever. He gave enough of a distraction that Maul was able to sneak away and kind of form a new type of plan. We do see his brother, the red marked Zabrak, really lamenting and mourning that his brother was killed. He sees it happen and cries out. And it's sad. It's hard. And it definitely harkens back to Maul and Savage. And I think that was very intentional, because in the next episode, we have a lot of flashbacks of Maul thinking back on his time as a child, as an adolescent, and his time with Savage and losing Savage. And I think whether or not Maul notices it, it was a really nice way to kind of remind the audience of what had happened to him. So yes, the yellow marked Night Brother gives him enough time to kind of formulate a new plan. He sneaks away. So we see Maul, he's on his knees. He puts his hands up, as though he's going to surrender. And the 11th brother, aka Skeletor, aka, according to Wikipedia, the Crow, which is really cool. So the Crow, turns on his Inquisitor lightsaber and it does the whoop, 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 whoop circle thing. And Maul puts his hands up and he goes, "There is no surrender for you. The Emperor wants you dead." And he's moving towards Maul with his lightsaber. Whoop, 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 whoop. And the first brother, which is Marok, is walking along next to him. And Maul looks up and he goes, "Likewise," and pulls the roof down on top of them. And so the Inquisitors are like, fuck. And they book it out of there because he's literally pulling these cave systems down on top of them. And Maul had an escape plan. He shoots through this little exit hole, and in a ode to Sidious in Revenge of the Sith, he does the in an ode to Sidious, he does that thing where you're like, you jump and you're flying, but you have your lightsaber out above your head and you start spinning really fast to like burrow your way through things. And we see Maul do that. And I believe the first episode ends with him like slamming into the ground and just like a groan. So that's kind of Maul's story for the first episode. At the top, I mentioned some of these fights being so cool, and it's really Maul versus the Inquisitors. I mean, on the battle to get to Maul's area, Devin and Maul fight the Inquisitors some more. she actually chooses, this is a big moment for Devin, she chooses to help Maul fight the Empire rather than taking the opportunity to escape with Riley. That's huge. That's huge for what Maul wants. And in this episode, we see Maul really, really pressuring Devin. He's like, I have given you the chance. You are taking your time, and the time is up. Come with me. And she's really just, no, my master, da-da-da-da, and keeps trying to run away. That was before the battle, and then the battle starts. She ends up helping Maul. Maul fights the Inquisitors in some of the best lightsaber work I've seen in a long time. Part of their fight goes through this area with waterfalls all over it, and there was one I'm trying to find a good word because the commonly used word for photography or filmography is the word shot. And our dear friend Alex Corman has explained to me, and I'm very thankful, that using a term that invokes violence, and specifically gun violence, can be seen as harmful to the, film and photography community. So I try not to use that word, and I'm trying to think of better ways to say it. But for now, lack of a better word, when those Inquisitors jumped through the waterfall, that shot was insane. They came through the waterfall, slightly staggered from one another, and they both kind of like looked up at the same time. And whatever music was happening in the background, just, if you guys have seen Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, hopefully you agree with me in thinking that the Prowler has some of the coolest music. And, when he enters on scene, the music just goes like, wow. And it's just this, it evokes emotion. It makes you feel like these goosebumps, this uncomfortable bit. And this is exactly what they did with the Inquisitors. There was a beat with the music that was just gorgeous. That's when I wrote down, let me see what I wrote down exactly. Yeah, I said the Inquisitors jumping through the waterfall and the music and the angle, we've reached peak media. And I stand by that. Like that, I can't wait to watch these episodes again because it's so fucking cool. One thing we saw, so while Maul is battling the Inquisitors, Devin escapes. She finds her way back to Daki and Lawson, and Lawson's like, where the fuck's my kid? And Devin's like, I lost him, my bad. And I wrote down Lawson's about to become Liam Neeson. Because he's like, I don't care that they're expecting an attack. I want my kid. I'm doing what I need to do to get my kid. Kind of hopping over to the Jedi storyline, I've talked quite a bit about Maul in that first episode. Daki, Devin, and Lawson are trying to think of a plan, how to get Riley back, what to do, how to escape the planet, all of this. And Lawson reaches out to Two Boots. And Devin and Devin and Daki are kind of like, didn't Two Boots already like betray you and bring the Empire here in the first place? Like, why are you calling this droid? Huh? And Lawson's kind of just, this is the only choice I have. This is the only person I know. We have been partners for so long. I do still have trust for him. Like, I understand that what he did was because of protocol, because he's a droid and because he's naive. And, Lawson is so desperate that he is kind of just, well, even though this droid betrayed me, it's all I have, so I'm going to try anyways. And Two Boots initially ignores the comms, but I think he was going to help anyways. He just, Captain or Lieutenant Blake walked by, so he had to hide the communication and stop responding to Lawson. And then eventually, what seems to be, 30 minutes later, maybe an hour, he finally gets back to Lawson. And in that time, Lawson received a message from his contact, Rena, which is the Nautilin. I believe is the species, same as Kit Fisto that we saw earlier in the series. She has the purple skin tint and her kind of head tails are pretty short. Anyway, she calls, says, hey, there's a transport leaving with or without you. Get here on time. And Lawson's like, I just got to get my kid real quick. And she said, you better hurry up. Two Boots gets back to them. He goes to Riley. He goes, Riley, I'm rescuing you. Let's go. And he escapes with Riley, not without raising some alarm and stunning a few stormtroopers. They sneak out the back. Not very sneaky, though, because they were immediately followed. And Docky had sent Devin to get them some transport. She comes by with this speeder that's all, like, pimped out. The way they made it seem is like she knocked out a couple of, like, gangbangers and stole their pimped out ride, basically. And so it's got, like, super speed, and it's got, like, bumping music when she first takes it. And so just in time, Devin comes flying over. They all hop in, and now they're racing across the planet. Don't remember the name, but the planet. And there's this chase that ensues. You know, there's some shooting, some this, some that. Some really cool shit with Devin and Docky, where they kind of like share this look, and then Devin, as there are speeders with troopers behind them and a gunship full of troopers in front of them, she flips the transport 180 degrees. Docky force pushes one of the stormtroopers' speeders down, which causes the other stormtrooper's speeder to kind of jet up over it, and he uses the force to slam it into the gunship, and everything explodes. It was really cool. I was like, okay, maybe an Order 66 move? I don't know. It was just cool to see Docky and Devin so on the same page. I loved that. So they escape. They make it to the elevator. They're on their way to meet Rena. And Devin, it seems uncomfortable, and she says, something's wrong. I can feel it. And Docky says, I feel that too. I can relate. This isn't right. We need to stop the lift. Like, this is a trap. And Lawson's like, what? So you just want to have no plan? You want to have no transport? And they're like, well, no plan is better than walking into a trap. And they find the elevator has been hardwired or like controlled to not stop. So they can't stop the lift. So instead, they cut a hole through the ceiling and escape up that way. Rena pulls some crazy shit off, some crazy smuggler mercenary shit where she attacks the trooper closest to her, uses him as a body shield to shoot like 7 or 8 other troopers, and then shoots out the engines of a ship, exploding everything. And I believe Captain Blake was there. So there's a chance he's dead because that explosion was huge. Like, it's the type of explosion where we assume Rena's alive because she's a good guy, but it looks pretty fatal to a lot of people. Like, our heroes were half a city block away, and this explosion rocked shit everywhere. So they know they've got a little bit of a head start because their ops were just wrecked. So as far as I can remember, that's kind of where the Jedi storyline leaves off at the end of episode 8. And honestly, episode 8 to me was about Maul. And I loved the way that they made this episode because it doesn't go from one scene to the next quickly. It doesn't just go scene to scene. There's these rest periods in between where the screen just goes black, and then it goes from Maul back to Devin, Lawson, Riley, and Docky. And then that scene will end, it goes to black, and it goes back to Maul. And I really loved that. It almost felt like chapters in a book, like you were given a little rest space in between to lock back into the other storyline. And I really loved that. I thought it was beautifully done, and it worked well. That the name of the episode was called The Creeping Fear. And wow, this episode is just Maul struggling through the underworld, trying to find his way back to his people. But we see some of his kind of the voices and the torment from, I want to say, season 4 of the Clone Wars, when Savage first finds him and he's half animatronic spider. And he's just yelling to himself and so in his head and just crazy. He just hears his own voice of that torment in his head. And this is what I'm like, as a nursing student, I think Maul is schizophrenic. And I don't use that derogatory. I don't mean anything negative by it. There's nothing wrong with people who have schizophrenia. It doesn't make you a villain. Maul is just also a villain. But like the voices in the head, the unstable emotions, the poor like impulse control, it's giving schizophrenic. And I think he might benefit from some medication and some therapy, but this is Star Wars and that's not going to happen. And Maul's the villain. But coming from that perspective, I have so much empathy for him. I mean, I think this entire 8th episode was made to build your empathy for Maul because it really tells his backstory. But especially also just looking at it in a lens of almost mental illness. I want to be a psych nurse. I always think about things in this way, whether I like it or not. Nursing school has ruined me. Everyone's a patient in my mind now, unfortunately. But that's just something that I noticed, where this really, to me, is reading as a mental illness. I don't know if those exist in Star Wars. Anyways, all that to say, Maul keeps struggling and his leg's not working. I think my name today was Maul's broken ass leg or like fuck ass leg or something like that. And it keeps short circuiting and, you know, there's sparks flying everywhere and he's just trying to like, he's trying to be Kylo Ren in The Force Awakens and like punch his wounds to make it better. He's like, ah, I'm like, bro, that's not going to help the electronics, but he thinks that'll help. So he does it. And then every time his legs give out and he falls or stumbles or something happens, he ends up looking down. Not every time, but he often will end up looking down into a puddle. And we see in the puddle him as a child, probably roughly between the ages of 7 and 10. And he looks into the puddle and water drops from above him into the puddle. And it's meant to look almost like a tear. And you see his face contort and he looks sad. He looks really sad. He almost lets out this like sob noise. And then we see him take that emotion and twist it into hate. And it is so cool to me that just the power of voice acting and that animation has gotten far enough to portray that kind of minute emotion from a character. It was so cool. He looks at his baby self and he goes, I hate you. And he smashes through the puddle and then it turns back into his own reflection. And he gets back up and he keeps moving. And then we see that happen again. Looks into a puddle. He sees himself as a child, but this time he sees Savage as well. And Savage is begging him not to go with Sidious. Brother, please don't go. Brother, stay with me. And there's nothing Maul can really do. He goes with Sidious anyways. And then we see throughout the episode, in these flashbacks, we see Sidious torturing Maul as a child. If he can't fight well enough, he just gets force lightninged to shit. Build that hate, classic Sith teaching methods. And we also see, there's a lot of things that happen in the flashbacks. I'm just going to try to run through them. We see himself as a spider, and when Savage first found him, we see Savage's death and how Sidious did that. We see, I know there was more, but those are the big ones that are sticking out to me right now. Is, a bit of his backstory with Savage, a little touch on his training early on with Sidious, and Sidious murdering Savage. Oh, he also, that's right, he had a flashback to when Kenobi kills him. And that was really cool, because he looks up and he's almost like, Kenobi? And it's this question because we realize at this point, Maul thinks Kenobi is dead. And this source that has been a driving hate for him suddenly has no object to hate. Kenobi's dead. And so I thought that was very interesting. We see Maul, it looks like he's fighting a sandstorm, trying to walk forward as the wind and dirt and dust is whipping around him. And he's fighting his way. And it was difficult to tell. I think that the wind and the dust was not real. And I think that was meant to show the storm in his mind and what he's perceiving, what he's going through. I don't think that was necessarily like an underground fan that was kicking up all of that debris, but it could be. I like to think of it as a beautiful way to portray his inner mind. And we see Spybot continue to look for him. You know, Rook Cast is like, he's out there, he's alive, he's got to be, he's going to find us. And we see some of the other mercenaries being like, is he though? I don't know. And I wish I had taken detailed notes on the conclusion of the episode, but I did not. But I know, Maul fights with this, kind of centers himself. And at the very end of the episode, we see him walk up to Rookcast, the rest of his organization, and Spybot. And it's just this, it felt like a rebirth maybe, or like a second coming type of a thing, where Maul just went through this big emotional and mental battle, and then everyone thinks he's dead. They think they're gone. They're starting to doubt him, and he returns just in time. And I'm so excited for the finale episodes next week. I'm so excited because this was some really, really good media. So yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on the episodes. I didn't write down any specific quotes, unfortunately. So it's going to be kind of a non-traditional ending to this episode, but thanks for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed. Please give us a follow on social media and stay tuned for next week when we will be talking about the finale of Maul, Shadow Lord. Okay. Stay classy, Dathomir. I hate you. That's going to be good enough. Okay, bye.